What's up, everybody? I'm Trip Morgan. He's Billy Harless. This is the Panther Source post-game show, here to talk to you about the Panthers' big win over the Green Bay Packers here in Week 15. We got a lot to get to. Y'all be sure to go ahead and follow us, subscribe to us on YouTube if you get a chance. But right now, just go ahead and like and follow us right here on Facebook. So we do all our live stuff. We do post-game shows, obviously, like this. We go on YouTube. I do film analysis with various guests and whatnot. Subscribe to us up there and follow us on Twitter at Panther Source on all of these things to stay up to date with us and keep in touch. But right now, we're going to get things started. Let's roll this intro. So what's up, everybody? Trip Morgan again. Billy Harless, how you doing, Billy? Big win today.
Oh, yeah, definitely a huge win.
Yeah, no doubt. This is one of those things. Aaron Rodgers came back. There was a lot of worry. We're going to jump right into the highlights here. A lot of worry going into this game about Rodgers coming back. But we talked about this on the preview. You know, one of the things was with Rodgers coming back, he'd been gone for so long, he was going to have some of that rust.
Yeah, he had some rust, and it took him a while to complete some passes. Of course, he lost one of his big weapons about halfway through the game, but I think he looked good for being gone for 8 weeks with a broken collarbone, and he did a really good job of not taking hits.
Yeah, and you know, that was kind of one of the things he did. Obviously, he had a couple of big underthrown balls that led to turnovers to Carolina, but Carolina's offense came out here and did what we expected them to do. We talked about it. You know, something else we talked about in that preview was how bad this Green Bay defense was, and Carolina had to move the ball. Started out great in the first half, obviously. It was the CMC show on the first drive. McCaffrey just went out there and was all over the place, was getting all the running back work. He was getting motion out to receiver. Cam was having a day, and it just looked like the Panthers were going to have control offense and be able to go down there and score the ball when they needed to at will, and then it kind of started to stall again after the first drive, really.
Yeah, and I think we saw CMC, and then we changed the game plan, and that, you know, we put Stewart in a lot more, and CMC was off the field. And we've talked about this for weeks. I don't really like, if something's working, don't fix it. Like, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Right.
So I don't see why we had to go to Stewart when everything was working, running the offense through CMC, and it did. It stalled us a little bit in the midway of the game.
Yeah, and then, of course, Greg Olsen had his coming out party after coming back from injury this week, and he just showed the difference he makes for this offense. And going down the stretch is going to be huge. He looked healthy today, had a big game. I think it was about 9 catches, 100 yards. We'll talk about that in the offensive recap when we really start diving into things and talking to y'all. But big game for him. I can't stress that enough. And, you know, obviously the ability he brings to this offense, and Cam making, you know, just like this play right here, Cam doing things again when plays break down, keeping things alive and burning the clock. Now, granted, they didn't get any points here, and the Packers ended up scoring before the first half. And Carolina going into this game was 9-0 when leading at halftime and hadn't won a game when they were trailing. And that's something, you know, I've mentioned up here a few times, and I told you right after they scored, I was like, you know, that's something you can't really base a season around. It's not a stat you base it around, but it kind of makes you start second-guessing what could go down in the rest of this game, because at that point, Rodgers looked like he was starting to heat up after an early interception.
Yeah. And talking about going into the halftime, we got the ball back with like a minute left, and we didn't run the ball. We were trying to score.
Yeah,
that was a huge surprise.
With 26 seconds left,
yeah.
After all the times this season we've had a minute or so, right at a minute left on the clock, and have, you know, passed on trying to get points. This game they stayed aggressive, and it was kind of like, this is a time I feel like against this defense, I feel like you don't have to do that.
Yeah.
You know, and if you give Rodgers the ball back with good field position, then that's a huge risk, and you don't want to give him momentum and give that offense momentum. Greg Olsen today, going back at him watching these highlights right here, I mean, he could have played, it seemed like, with one arm tied behind his back, all those one-hand catches he had.
I mean, he had a lot of stickum on those gloves today.
Yeah.
I mean, he wasn't even closing his hand. They just seemed to be sticking to his glove.
And Cam Newton right here, this pass, this Damiere Byrd, I don't think I've ever seen a left ass cheek ever be so prominent in the game, but it was here on this bird catch. You can see the great replay here, the camera angle, boom. And I know you were saying live, we both were like, oh, it looks like he's out. And I said the replay on that angle, I said, oh, it looks like his left cheek was in. And then that the broadcasters, Joe Buck and them and Aikman were saying, I don't know, that doesn't count as 2 feet. And I'm sitting here, if a forearm and shin counts as 2 feet, how does your butt not?
And I think if he would have just fell down and not been brought down by contact, I think that's an incomplete pass. But because he was pulled down and that butt did hit inside before he rolled over, then it counts as complete.
Yeah, and that's something else. You bring that up. I was looking on Twitter and multiple former refs and I think Mike Pereira was the guy with Fox. He even said if it falls regardless of contact or not, it actually is a catch as long as he carries possession throughout, and him regaining that possession quick is what led to that. And then, of course, Damiere Byrd again really starting to step into that wide receiver 2 role, which is something I'm excited. I've talked about. I felt like when Samuel went out and he was coming back, I felt like Damiere Byrd could be a quiet piece to this that many probably wouldn't have guessed. I felt like he could do a really good job at that deep threat role. You still haven't seen a lot of shots deep with him, but I feel like they could be coming. So we'll jump right into the offensive recap here. Cam Newton, last couple of weeks, has been playing really good football. He played, we said he played good against the Saints. It's a shame it went the way it did, but overall we felt like his gameplay was good that game. Again today, 20 of 31, 242 yards, 4 passing touchdowns, no interceptions. Only sacked once, which is big. Quarterback rating of 128. And Bill Voth put out on Twitter a little while ago, I was telling you, 7 of Cam's top 25 worst performances have came this season, but also 3 of his best QB rating performances have come this season. And that's kind of like we've all talked about. It's been that roller coaster ride for the Carolina Panthers, and you just want to see the consistency. And now that they're starting to get healthy, outside of obviously losing Curtis Samuel on offense, but you're getting Greg Olsen back. He looked healthy. He looked good today. Ryan Khalil's back. Hopefully you get Trey Turner back, and that was something else we can talk about, some Mini Silatulu filling in at the right guard spot. But you get all these guys back, and now it seems like they're getting that consistency. They're getting that gel back. The offensive line's finally starting to get that continuity that needs to be there.
The only sore spot now in the offense is the Funchess injury that happened today. Re-aggravating his shoulder. Hopefully that doesn't last a long time because we need that wide receiver 1. And like I've said a couple weeks ago, we try to find our offense, we find it, and then we get a bad injury, and then we're back to the drawing board. Yeah,
when you saw him get hit, I mean, he got hit hard in that shoulder, and it almost looked like a collarbone type of game today, ironically enough, with Aaron Rodgers coming back and that being a storyline. Funch has been battling that shoulder. He got hit and ended up dropping that touchdown pass. It seemed like he was going to be seriously injured. It wasn't lifting up that shoulder or whatnot. And then, 2 plays later, or the next play, Russell Shepard got hit on the slant coming across the middle, and he went out. I don't even know. I didn't really catch if he actually returned.
I don't think I ever saw him come back in the game.
I didn't pay much attention to that, but it's just it took a weird turn of events there for a minute. We were calling it the Collarbone Bowl. But we talked about Christian McCaffrey and the impact he had on this game. 12 carries, 63 yards for 5.3 yard average per carry. Again, he's coming into his own. He's finally starting to adjust to this NFL speed. Didn't have a touchdown carrying today. Greg Olsen receiving. He had Cam Newton 14 carries, 58 yards, and I didn't even feel like he carried the ball that much. But I was talking to you, and you said, "Well, I don't know. There were a few times where they were rushing them back to back. A couple times there, which is good."
Yeah, there was one drive. I think it was two runs for Cam, and then it was pass play, and then another run with Cam. And we want to protect Cam. I want to see that it works. He's huge, like they were talking about today. He's the biggest guy on the field besides the lineman.
Yep.
The linebackers can't take him down. Let him run and get those yards. He can protect himself.
Yeah, and you've seen what he can do. When he's going against like a safety last week against Minnesota on that big clutch 60-yard run, you've seen what he can do to guys in open space if he gets that opportunity. And that read option's working. They bit hard on McCaffrey one time later in the game, and he only took it for 7 yards. But you're getting the key to the Panthers' offense. I can't stress it enough. I've said it all year. Is and really any team in the NFL, obviously, is making, if you get to third down, making them manageable.
Yep.
And a 3rd and 3 is always going to be better than 3rd and 6 or more.
Oh, yeah.
And, I mean, that's just Captain Obvious speaking, but that's the impact Cam brings to the game when he's running the football effectively. Jonathan Stewart, 11 carries for 27 yards. And then receiving today, we talked about it, Greg Olsen, huge day, 9 catches, 116 yards, 1 touchdown. The touchdown came on that it was terrible blown coverage by Josh Jones, former NC State safety, rookie this year. That's a guy, Greg Olsen's not a guy you want to leave wide open in the seams. I mean, that's where he makes his living.
Yeah, when that play was happening, I was in my head, I was like, where's that ball? It stayed in the air for so long. Cam put so much touch on it that I was worried that the defender was going to get back before it got to Greg. Of course, he just had to turn around and be in the end zone. But that was, it's great that we have Greg back on the field.
Yeah. And then, of course, Christian McCaffrey, 6 catches, 73 yards, and a touchdown. And we actually have that clip of him, this whole Cam, called out. It was caught live, and I'll let y'all see this. I made this little GIF for everybody. Right here.
He didn't get it on the line.
Funny stuff.
Play was because he was on the sidelines, but they've got him. 15th play of the drive. Newton finds him. McCaffrey, touchdown. What a
you've been watching film, huh? Yeah, watch this. Making Aaron Rodgers mad there. You got to love that kind of stuff. But
yeah, when it was live, Clay Matthews was, he was screaming, "Watch the wheel route,
making
watch the
the
wheel
audibles,
route."
yep.
And Cam, point out, he's like, "Oh, you've been watching film, huh?" And I heard that part. I didn't catch the watch this. I was like, they're not going to run the wheel route, and then we score a touchdown. But yeah, there was a lot of trash talk today on the field.
Yeah,
There's a lot.
And that opening on that CMC touchdown was really caused by Greg Olsen flying up that middle seam right off the tight end spot, goes up the middle seam, and both guys converge on him, and it leaves underneath wide open for CMC coming out of the backfield, boom, touchdown. And that's the impact. Again, Greg Olsen brings to this offense, and I can't stress it enough going forward. You have to feel good seeing this in consecutive weeks. Obviously, this is the Packers are a bad defense. But you saw it against Minnesota, which is one of the league's top defenses, and that's something you have to feel good about. You got Tampa Bay next week, and in a game you feel like you can win. Obviously, it's a divisional game. They're going to be looking to play spoiler, but I feel comfortable moving forward with them. Damiere Byrd, 3 catches, 25 yards. Not much on the catch or the yardage, but he made 2 of those 3 count on the touchdowns. So. Yeah. That was a really impressive catch by him in the back of the end zone. Being for his size, even for Cam to throw it up there, it was a tight window for Cam to throw it into, and he put it right where it needed to be.
Well, you look at it, drop passes weren't a problem today.
Yeah,
I mean he had 4 targets, he caught 3 of them. 12 targets to Olsen, he caught 9 of them, and McCaffrey missed 1. So our wide receivers are catching the ball. And we're able to take care of the ball, and that easily makes a win. It's so easy to win when we don't turn the ball over.
Yep, and that's what, like I said earlier about the stat, going into halftime, Carolina was 9-0 when they were leading at the half. Obviously, they changed that from the other side, the other perspective. But the other thing was when Carolina wins the turnover battle, they are also undefeated this year, which, I mean, if you're winning the turnover battle in a game, you should be winning it anyway. I felt like this game towards the end was really way too close for the way it felt, but I didn't feel like, they seemed to get a little conservative on one drive there in the middle once they got up, but then they came right back out, and you saw Shula dial up a play where it gave McCaffrey an option to pass.
Yep.
And I mean, I'm not necessarily against that, and you trust McCaffrey to make the right decision, and he did. He pulled it down and ran for 7 yards.
It's funny that play was called because not probably 3 or 4 plays before that, analysts talking about McCaffrey just hasn't thrown a pass this year. He's done everything else but throw one, and then here's McCaffrey about to throw the ball. And it was ironic.
Yeah, it was definitely a sight to behold because I never saw that coming. But I'm loving the wrinkles. Shula's throwing in there, and like I said, he didn't get ultra conservative late, so that's the big thing. Reading some of y'all's comments here, Jaquan Simmons, man, we had him on the ropes. Yeah, we did. Mindy saying Olsen is doing work. Yep, that was great to see. Melissa Patterson-Lang, we sure missed Olsen, and we can tell today. So glad he's back. And it made worlds of difference on all of those, second and longs, third and longs. He makes his living in the seams, and him and Cam have that chemistry. They know right where each other's going to be when they're throwing the ball. And, it's funny because Olsen was actually telling the sideline not to challenge the bird catch. He was like, I was back there, and I saw him bobble it. Guys, don't challenge it. And then they showed the replay, and he was yelling at the sideline, I told you. And then all of a sudden, he looks up at the big board, and he's smiling. He says, I told you to challenge it. I told you needed to challenge that ball. Funny stuff. Ryan Gilmore, it was a great game today. Lots to talk about for sure. Yep, no doubt. And that's obviously what we're doing here. Jump back here. And then outside of Damiere Byrd, Devin Funchess, 1 catch, 19 yards, and that was the first play of the second half. Outside of that, he was really quiet, and he was, no wide receiver had a catch in the first half. Not a single wide receiver. Funchess broke that with the first play of the second half, and then obviously he had the touchdown. Well, he would have had the touchdown, but he ended up dropping it because of the shoulder hit. But, I mean, they still found other ways, and I think that's a big thing moving forward. And again, I can't talk about enough. Green Bay's defense is bad. This is the matchup we wanted to see. If Carolina didn't move the ball today, we wanted to see that consistency. After you do something like that against Minnesota, you have to come out and do the same thing against the defense like the Packers today, and Carolina did it. So that was good to see. And we'll jump over to the defensive side, talk a little bit about Aaron Rodgers. Thomas Davis in a little bit of controversy today because of the shot he put on the Colin Jones, intercepts the ball, underthrown ball from Aaron Rodgers. He's running it back, and Davis goes to lay a backside block, which is illegal anyway, but he leans with his helmet. He kind of thrusts with his shoulder, but his helmet ends up ear-holing wide receiver Devontae Adams for the Packers, and it was ugly. I mean, it was a nasty hit, and I'll be the first one to say I would never see Thomas Davis doing something intentional like that. They panned to him on the sideline right after, and he had his head in his hands like he was praying. He was hopeful that Devontae Adams was okay. He obviously had remorse. And then Aaron Rodgers after the game was saying, I feel like the league will do something to him. He's a repeat offender, which I felt was a little strong.
Yeah, and like you told me that, and I was like, I'm trying to think of a time when this is a habit, and I can't think of one. But the hit wasn't needed. Like I said while we were watching, I was like, he definitely launched, and he was remorseful. But the bad part is Devontae Adams already left the field earlier in the year on a stretcher with a concussion and neck injury. So if this is his second one in the season, it's really not good.
Yeah, and what Aaron Rodgers is talking about with the repeat offender is against Tampa Bay earlier this year, Davis was fined for a hit on wide receiver Adam Humphries of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and it was really we all felt like at the time it was a kind of one of those ticky-tack, bang-bang plays, and it wasn't. It was a clean hit overall is what we all thought. And Thomas Davis took to Instagram after he got fined for it, and he said, if this is an illegal hit, and he said, it's just time for me to retire. He said, that was a clean hit. He said, I'm sorry if it looked ugly live. He said, but you can clearly see it was clean. So for Rodgers to come out and say that, and I haven't seen the audio, so I don't know if he was, drilling him. Obviously, Rodgers said he thought it was completely unnecessary hit. Yes, it was. Like I said, I wouldn't see Thomas Davis doing something like that intentionally, and I'm sure he'll try to make it right any way he can. That's just the kind of guy he is.
And I guess the one for the Humphries hit, he wasn't flagged for, if I remember now that you've mentioned that.
Yeah,
and that was I think he wasn't flagged and he was fined later. So I don't. It's not. He doesn't have a history of it. And there was at one point in the game when Thomas Davis was talking to Rodgers.
Yep.
Did he say I'm sorry? Whatever. Maybe it left us. A loss coming back. Leaves a little sour taste in Rodgers' mouth. So he wanted to.
Yeah, and it did. It looked like he was, he kind of stopped Rodgers and was talking to him. He said, look, it looked like he was saying, look, man, I'm sorry. I'm not the kind of player, this and that. And he kind of patted him on the back, and Rodgers kind of tapped him on the shoulder like, yeah, dude, it's fine. I don't know if it was about that particular play with him chasing Rodgers, pursuing him on the play, or if he was actually talking about the wide receiver thing. I'm sure they're catching up after the game or whatnot. That's just the kind of guy Thomas Davis seems to be. But Aaron Rodgers, Panthers defense, he, like we said earlier to start the show, he showed the rust. 26 of 45, 290 yards, 3 touchdowns, but also threw 3 interceptions, and all 3 of them were just underthrown balls. Receivers, weren't necessarily well covered. There was coverage, but the one to Jordy Nelson that Bradbury picked, Nelson kind of had a step on him, and that's a throw maybe a healthy Rodgers can make on the run. And then the one to Colin Jones, I kind of felt like that one might have been a little bit of a bad decision because I felt like Jones actually had good coverage on that. And then, of course, the one Darryl Worley intercepted was a bad decision by Rodgers.
Yeah.
He was getting pressured, and he just kind of threw up the ball. trying to find that Hail Mary throw again, I guess. But first 3 interception game for Aaron Rodgers since 2009. It's quite a stretch.
Yeah, he's not used to those kind of games at all.
Nope, definitely not. But look, if y'all watching right now, jump in the comments. Tell us where you're watching us from. We've had people jump in here, tell us they're watching us from Hawaii, joining in, talking to us. Washington. I think I saw Jacksonville, Florida at one point. Then we saw Jacksonville, North Carolina.
Yeah,
maybe
we had somebody in Afghanistan a couple weeks ago.
And we're right here out of Greenville, North Carolina. We're about 3.5 hours east of Charlotte ourselves. So y'all jump in the comments. Let us know where you're watching from. If you're a Panthers fan, have you always been a Panthers fan there? I mean, if you moved, I know a lot of Panthers fans end up relocating. But jump in the comments. Let us know where you're from and where you're watching. On the ground today, Green Bay rushing totaled 120 yards as a team. Aaron Jones really is the one that gashed him a couple times. Came in, was hitting holes hard. 3 carries for 47 yards, a 15.7 yards per carry average. That was really when he came in for those 2 stretch runs, and he just gashed right up the middle, like we were saying. That kind of started to concern me a little bit. You don't want one of the things we did talk about. Josh Klein was on our preview show this week from the Riot Report. One of the things he said, I was talking about, well, I think it's easy. You have to just stop Aaron Rodgers and his receiving weapons would be the main matchup because I feel like the Panthers offense should be able to move the ball. Well, he brought up that's true, but you don't want to let them get a ground game because they're going to want to help Rodgers all they can, and that was a great point. And I feel like Carolina did that outside of those couple of runs.
Yeah, I mean, he came in and he got some big runs on us, but we bend and we didn't break.
Yep.
And that was a good thing.
Let's see, jumping back in y'all's comments here. Jeremy Mayhew. People said we couldn't win with the passing game. Looks like we just did. Cam looks great. Yeah, look, Cam looked good today. I thought, again, Olsen being back was huge. When the receivers, outside of Damiere Byrd 2 touchdowns, and Devin Funchess didn't have a big day like he has in the past. McCaffrey motioning out of the backfield. It's still amazing to me to see when McCaffrey takes 5 strides out of the backfield to motion out to slot or receiver, how much it makes a defense move and start motioning around, and it causes confusion, and he just runs such great routes. We saw it on the comeback, the deep comeback route on that first drive, right on the sidelines. I mean, it was a thing of beauty. It's impressive. I'm glad we got a weapon like Christian McCaffrey, and he's really starting to come into his own here lately. Dan Mullis, McCaffrey is gaining confidence, which could be bad news for opponents going forward. Completely agree. He's adjusted to that NFL speed, like we've been saying, and it's the stats show it over the last month how much better he's become as a runner, and the Panthers seem to be using him better now. And with Greg Olsen coming back again, I think that's only going to get better. Chaz Pender, Cam playing really good today. Ryan Gilmore watching from Charleston, South Carolina. Awesome. I've got family down in Charleston, the Mount Pleasant area. They actually own the Shelter Bar and Grill down there near Shem Creek. Great place. You should go check it out. Let them know what you think about it. Jaquan Simmons, Spokane, Washington. I think Jaquan was actually the last one who was telling us he was from Washington last week, maybe. Good stuff here. Always good to hear. Chaz Pender watching from Wilson, North Carolina. Sweet. You're right down the road from us. We're in Greenville, see 45 minutes? I think something like that. Right here in the Queen City. Oh, man, that must be nice. I'd be in trouble if I lived up in the Queen City with all those games. I'd be one broke cat. Antonio Carell, what was the deal with Captain, and anyone heard anything on Shepard? So, Captain, this is actually quite a turn of events. We talked about in the preview show Wednesday with Josh Klein, and he basically told us what we saw on Twitter, that he went out there to practice, and he left on his own terms, apparently, at the time is what was said, because he was unhappy with the game plan and his involvement in the game plan with Shaq Thompson being out, and he was upset about it, and he left the practice early. Well, afterwards, he said, he told the press, while Cam Newton was doing his presser that Wednesday, he told the press in the locker room, he said, look, I'm fine, it's good, we'll be all right. And he later, all this stuff surfaced about him being upset, and he later started tweeting, people will make stories out of anything these days. Well, then he's healthy and active today out of the blue. It was never announced until right before game time, and that obviously threw a red flag up.
Yeah, and I talked about in the pregame show that maybe it was his attitude that he's had for the last couple of weeks. And we said, he's liked in the locker room and everything, but it definitely showed that his attitude is getting him in trouble. I mean, he's a healthy scratch.
Yep.
I would have liked to see him in the game, but Colin Jones did fine. But if he's going to have that attitude, the Panthers don't play with players like that. So I like seeing him on the sideline today. Maybe his attitude would change and become more of a team player, not a me.
Yeah, and that's not something the Captain Munderland is normally about. Now, he came back, he took less money, he came back here to try to win a championship, to come back home and team up with all these old guys again, because he knows Carolina was missing that role. And we've talked about it all season, how we felt like it was weird how he hadn't been being used. And then Colin Jones is getting a start over him this week, and it's like, maybe Colin Jones has been playing well. Because, in the past years, Colin Jones has not fared well in that nickel spot. That's one of the reasons we signed Munderland back. But it was clear today, Rivera said that, look, we benched him because of this, and we felt good with Colin Jones going in. And Colin Jones, look, props to him. It was one of the things I was worried about today. He had an interception. He played well. Rodgers did attack the seams today, and that's something that's been a weakness throughout this season for the Carolina Panthers defense, and it probably will remain one. But it was another thing where Rodgers kept drives alive with his feet, much like Case Keenum last week, and it's frustrating to see that because it extends drives. But at the same time, if that's the biggest thing you kind of have to worry about, then it's not necessarily bad either, I guess. But you hate to see a guy like Rodgers get another 4 downs to have an opportunity to score.
Yeah, Rodgers, he did, like I said, he avoided hits today. I didn't think that he would have to run as much or that he would run as much. And they even said that there was not going to be a design run in the game. And, of course, when they went to that 4th and 1, it was a design run for Rodgers. He took some risks today, and, luckily it worked out for us.
Yeah, no kidding. And he had something else. He talked about Shepard, I think it was.
Yeah,
Jaquan was asking about, and no, I haven't. We were actually talking about that a few minutes ago, and we haven't heard anything on Shepard. I don't remember seeing him go back into the game. Neither one of us remember that, and I actually haven't seen anything. I'm looking at notifications coming in. We haven't seen anything on the Shepard update. He looked a little bit more limp with his shoulder than Funchess did, so that was a bit concerning. Let's see here. Roll back through. Where's he at? Spokane, Washington. Yeah, okay. Right here in the Queen City. Kevin Shepard watching from Concord, North Carolina. Jeremy Turner, Swansboro. Shaq and Captain was missed, period. I don't think Shaq, the defense has played well without Shaq, I feel like. They've given up the seam routes and stuff, but that's something Shaq struggled with this whole season himself against slot receivers, and I feel like those nickel guys, speeder guys like Colin Jones and Captain Munderland are better at that. You saw Kevon Seymour essentially gave up the touchdown to Randall Cobb when Rodgers was scrambling. He broke off of Cobb and didn't pattern match and went off with the crossing route. That's what it looked like. Now, Luke Kuechly was underneath, and he took after Rodgers, but it's hard to see just watching that live broadcast whose fault that was on. But I feel like they've done pretty well considering Shaq being out. I like Shaq as a run defender and a blitzer. But when it comes to coverage, I know he used to be a safety in college for Washington, but I don't, I kind of like these guys better in coverage.
Yeah, he hasn't shown a lot in coverage. And like I've said, the secondary was my call on the pregame show this week, and they stepped up. The secondary defense, I was worried because I knew Rodgers come back, and it's Aaron Rodgers. But 3 picks, I can't talk no trash today about the defense.
A lot of that had to do also with the pass rush again, getting forcing quick bad decisions from Aaron Rodgers, getting them outside. Aaron Rodgers is one of those better quarterbacks in the NFL when he's on the run and making things happen with his feet and passing. He's one of the better quarterbacks in the league at doing that. We all know that. But Carolina did that. They got him outside of his comfort zone. They got him. They were hitting him. Julius Peppers got him. Him and Addison shared a sack today. Both got into 10 sacks each on the season. Julius Peppers is 37 years old, guys. 37 years old and has 10 sacks this year. When we got him in free agency, one of the things I kept talking about was if he can come in for us and get 7.5 sacks like he did for Green Bay last year, if he does that for us this season, that's huge. And he's done better than that. He's got his hand in the dirt. He's not in a 3-4 linebacker role anymore, blitzing. So it's definitely a positive. But they got Rodgers, knocked him off his game. and did that.
I will say the Pepper sack. I watched a video of that sack again before the show. He pulled up. I don't know if he was waiting for a whistle, if he heard a whistle, or if he wasn't. He wasn't worried about. He was worried about hurting Rodgers, but that should have been his full sack. But I mean, it counts. But he pulled up, and I'm guessing he just didn't want to hurt Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, you saw them kind of giving each other some love after that. You know, Rodgers is like, "All right, man, you got me." One of the things I do want to talk about. Let's say I'm reading y'all's comments here. We left too many points on the field after picks. Antonio Carrell, I completely agree there. It's so frustrating when you've got momentum going. Your defense, you get a touchdown off a turnover. Defense goes out, gets another turnover. You're getting momentum. It feels like you're about to stretch this game out, and then you come and you run 2 rushing plays, which, I mean, I'm not going to call that conservative play calling. You're trying to make things manageable. You're trying to shoot the clock at the same time. And you want to establish a run game and open up play action, and then you get a 3 and out and you put your defense right back out on the field, and it's like, oh man, that feels like a win for Green Bay in a way. It's momentum things. And Matt Khalil released another free rusher off the edge today that put us in a 3rd and 14 situation in the red zone. We had to settle for 3, and the first thing that popped in my mind was the New Orleans Saints game in Week 3 where we were driving down the field on the opening drive, looking good. It was a 2nd and 4, and Cameron Jordan comes off the edge, sacks Cam, and all of a sudden it's a 3rd and long, and that whole drive and momentum is gone.
Yep. Just
like that in one play, and that happens in the NFL. So I completely agree, Antonio. We talked about it every time watching. Super proud we beat the way Jones played, maybe the right decision. Yeah, look, today it worked. Chaz Penner, to me, I think our secondary matured a lot in this game. He didn't want to hit Rodgers. Well, that's unfortunate, but he did anyway. He got some of it. But back to Chaz's comment here. To me, I think our secondary matured a lot in this game. Look, James Bradbury and Darryl Worley each have a 2 interceptions in the last 2 weeks after no cornerback had an interception all season coming into last week's game. Big.
Forced fumble also.
Yep. Now how big was that?
Yeah, that was huge.
That James Bradbury forced fumble with the peanut punch, he said after the game, Jordan Rodriguez, he said, was that a peanut punch? He said it absolutely was. And I mean, it was really a bang play, but heads up to him to get in there and knock that thing out. Big turnover at that point in the game. And something else I want to hit on, we didn't really talk about in the offensive recap of things, was Amini Silatolu stepping in for Trey Turner. We talked about Taylor. We felt like Taylor Moton should be in that role. On the Cam touchdown pass to Greg Olsen where the coverage was blown, they had the defensive tackle just bull rushed Silatolu. Now, the rest of the game, it seemed like he did fine. He actually, on the opening drive where Cam did the little swing pass to McCaffrey, Silatolu got out and threw a good block.
And it's funny you say that now, but we were watching the game. Before that play developed, you're like, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
And then, of course, he's pulling.
Yep.
And the play was just taking a little bit to develop. But
Yep.
I was laughing. I was like, he's
Because
doing what he's supposed to do.
Yeah, and he was, and he did. It was just at the time when he comes in, and it's like, this was classic Silatolu the whole season when he stepped in for those few snaps for Trey Turner. He either gets ran completely over or he's pushed a guy inside and just let him free, and that's exactly what it looked like. But he did the right thing, and immediately I was like, okay, Silatolu, look, like, great job. Great job. Like, I'm happy to see that. So that was good to see. And then later, of course, he gave up that bull rush, but it was just enough time for Cam to get it off to Olsen on the blown coverage. But, I mean, obviously a decent game from him. I mean, he did his job well enough.
Yeah, I think the line played good. Hey, we got neutral zone infractions, like 4 or 5 of them today.
Oh, man.
So, we played
Cam
disciplined.
was killing the hard counts today. They had to have at least 5 or 6.
They had 2 that gives a first down right in a row.
Yeah.
But the thing is, and they were talking, it wasn't really a hard count. It was.
No,
just,
it wasn't.
It was
Yeah,
the
some
same
of them
cadence. It was just they were not disciplined and they kept jumping off sides.
And, part of the reason Green Bay's defense is so bad is they're pretty banged up right now. But that front 4 for them on defense was just, I mean, they were jumping left and right, and Cam was just eating them up with it. So we'll take it any way we can get it.
At some point, I want Cam to have the mental fortitude to snap that ball and take a free play.
Yeah. Well, it's not Cam snapping it. That's up to Khalil. You would think Khalil would just go ahead and hike
snap it. Yeah, but to snap it like, because Rodgers is good at it. Brady is good at it. Take the shot.
It seems they're more focused, and maybe that's part of the reason is they missed that. They didn't get that one call, so now they're like, well, I mean, if I snap it, is it gonna get that free release again? Because against the Saints, when they didn't get that call, the offensive line was so confused and they had to snap it, it just left a free run for everybody at Cam. So, but yeah, definitely so. Worley is a ball hawk. He struggles in man, but he's coming along. Yeah, and there was a weak block in the back call on Russell Shepard.
Yeah.
I thought that was really lame.
think
That was
he-
on that was on a big cam run.
Yeah,
wasn't
he was diving for the tackle, and his hands
His
hands
hand was on
never
the back.
extended, but
Yeah.
his hands were on his back. And when he went for the tackle, they called blocking the back. I thought that was bullshit.
Yeah, that was. I thought it was a terrible call, and everybody saw it in the stands and agreed when they let down a rain of boos there. Let's see here. If reading y'all's comments, Cam finally got his dog back. That he did. Chandre Williams, we can take our division. You know, the Saints were flirting with disaster with the Jets today at home. They ended up pulling away late, obviously, and we'll get into all that on the road to the playoffs and see exactly what we're working with. Kevin Shepard, why is Matt Khalil still in the game? Had time to prove, still hasn't stepped up. Look, Khalil isn't – I'm not going to sit here and say he's worth the money we're paying him, but outside of a couple of the bad penalties that he's had the last few weeks, in that I think there was one time he got beat today that was pretty prominent. But outside of that here lately, I feel like that offensive line has actually done pretty well. I mean, and it shows with the offense being able to move the ball in the way Cam's played. I don't feel like he's been under a lot of duress. 1 sack today for a loss of 6 yards, and Cam was kind of moving outside the pocket on that. I feel like they've done a decent job, a well enough job to give Cam enough time to find a guy down.
Oh yeah, definitely. And Cam, he's playing ball we haven't seen Cam play in a while. He's getting rid of the ball. He's throwing the ball away. He did it a lot today, and he's putting us in good situations himself. But I think the offensive line has played pretty great, and we didn't have a ton of penalties today screwing us. So.
Yeah, and Chandre Williams, do you think Thomas Davis is going to be suspended? I wouldn't see that coming.
Unless, like, the habit and the one he had earlier, I don't know what the rule is on multiple in a season. If maybe the first one is a fine, the second one's a fine and suspension, or it's a bigger fine. I don't think he'd be suspended for it because he didn't. There was no malice after. It wasn't like the Juju hit.
I mean, it didn't look good.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat it. It wasn't a good hit from TD, but I don't think it was. I mean, it wasn't like it was after a play was blown dead or anything like this. I mean, this was in the middle of the play. It looked like he kind of threw his shoulder and his head just ended up ear-holing Devontae Adams. One of them kind of bang things, but it was ugly. I certainly expect him to get fined. I would hope not anyway. He doesn't get suspended. Let's see, Antonio Carrell. Khalil is an upgrade from Rimmers. Look, Rimmers has missed 6 weeks. Just had his first game back from missing 6 weeks with a concussion. But other than that, Rimmers has actually had a really good season, so that's debatable. But neither one of them are worth $55 million in my opinion. I still would have rather had Andrew Whitworth coming out of Cincinnati last year, like I continue to complain about. But we'll move on here from the defensive recap and offensive recap. Jump right into the player of the game. Billy, who is your player of the game? I think Cam had his dog back today.
I'm gonna go defensive side of the ball.
Okay.
We're in week 15. For about 13 of those weeks, I've talked trash about Worley. At the beginning of the year, it was really bad.
Somebody better record this. Oh, I am recording it. Sorry.
Today, he stepped up. He got the first pick. That's huge momentum.
It's the second week in a row he's got that first pick.
But yeah, he got the first pick in the game. It's huge momentum change. It's against Rodgers, which obviously all the players know that's all that's been talked about all week, and they needed to play up to Rodgers. But they shut him down today, and I'll give it to Worley.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's fair. And like I said, y'all better save that recording or something if Billy ever talks trash to him again. But look, he's giving credit where credit's due.
Next week it'll be totally different.
And last week on the post-game show after the Vikings game, Billy said, I hope he just finds that consistency and doesn't take 20 steps back like he has in past games, because much like the Panthers team as a whole this year, Worley's been up and down. He comes in, he plays great. He comes in next week, and then he bombs, and he's getting pass interference calls. He's blowing coverages. But he played well this week. I think he still has the ability to be a good corner for Carolina, starting cornerback too. And he had a great game today, and he stepped up the last 2 weeks. Him and Bradbury both. That defense as a whole really, 11 takeaways over the last 5 weeks after that was a big issue at the start of the season. It seems now they're really starting to come into their own, and hopefully that continues because obviously anytime you win that turnover margin we talked about, it's going to be big. Oh, we got a phone call.
call from.
How many times, but I never. Some things I just keep.
Jaquan.
Hey.
Hey, what's up, buddy? How you doing?
I'm doing good.
Good.
How are
Thank
you?
you for calling. Doing great. Doing great.
Yeah.
Hey, always good after a Panthers
for-
win, man.
Always. Now, I'm watching the show and everything, and just to let you know, I recorded it. So I recorded. So next time if he says something about Daryl Worley, I'll bring it up.
Yeah, dilly.
you've been watching the show now. I think I've seen your name for a while, so you've probably heard.
Yeah,
you've heard my rants against Worley over the whole entire
season. I've heard about your little rants about Daryl Worley. I'm like, I've actually got like a phone now I can call. I've always wanted to call him, but I've always been like, what do I say to these guys? I don't want to sound stupid.
Oh no, you're good, man. You can just call in and talk about anything you want. Well, as long as it's Panthers football, obviously talk about the win.
Oh, of course it's always Panthers football,
Yeah.
but like now, like everybody said, Cam got his dog back, and Greg Olsen looks phenomenal today. It made me happy.
Yeah, I'm glad.
And,
I'm glad that Olsen's back, and hopefully that foot is perfectly fine now.
Yep.
I hope it is. Now, I got a question.
Uh-huh.
So, if the Saints lose next week, and somehow they lose next week, and then we win, will we win the division? Even though they have the
we won't clinch the division. We will be in first for the division. So, and that would mean, because what that would mean is, obviously Atlanta beats New Orleans. That gives New Orleans 5 losses. We'll have 4, being we beat Tampa Bay, and Atlanta will have 5.
Mm-hmm.
And the next week at Atlanta would ultimately determine who would win the NFC South between Carolina and Atlanta, because if Carolina loses, they've lost to New Orleans twice, and Atlanta's beat New Orleans twice. If they win next week, obviously.
Yeah.
And then Carolina would fall. They'd be right in that wild card spot like we've all talked about. But if Carolina can win out and New Orleans loses one more game in the next 2 weeks, then Carolina would win the division, because we would have 4 losses, and New Orleans and Atlanta would at least have 5.
Man, I hope they lose, man, because I'm tired of Saints fans calling up my phone talking about what are your Panthers going to do. And I'm like, leave me alone. Y'all not really doing nothing. Y'all almost lost to the Jets.
Yeah. Well, hey, look, we almost
They
lost
turned
to
the ball
Jets.
over. Yeah, for real. We almost lost to the Jets. But
Yeah.
they turned the ball over like each time the Saints got the ball, they turned the ball over. But the Jets can't really do nothing. They ain't got a quarterback.
Yep. So, yeah, it's going to be tough for Atlanta. Obviously, we're all going to be pulling for Atlanta next week. It's going to be tough for them to go to New Orleans and win. But, they beat them at Atlanta. Now, obviously, Alvin Kamara going out early in that game played a huge factor. They have him back. I didn't get to watch the game today, so I don't have much input on what I saw. I do know it was close for the majority of the game up until the fourth quarter. But, I'm gonna be pulling for them Falcons hard this week, and then I'll be shoving them in the dirt the next week. Hopefully, we can get a win at Tampa Bay. You can't ever look at division rival looking to play spoilers. Billy and I talked about that to start the show.
Yeah, you can't really, because everybody was telling me before the beginning of the season, Carolina's gonna, and they were talking about Carolina gonna lose to all of everybody in the division, and Tampa Bay's gonna win the division. I'm just looking at them what has Tampa Bay done in the last 10 years?
Yeah, and it's one of the things, man. Tampa Bay is every year they're the team picked to be the surprise playoff run team, because they got all these people on paper. Like this year, they went out and got Deshaun Jackson. They came off a pretty good year last year with Jameis Winston, and then this year it was look, they went out and got Deshaun Jackson. They drafted O.J. Howard. They've got the defensive players. Dirk Cutter's the coach now, and he looked good in his first season. And until they can put the product on the field, I'm not buying into anything that Tampa Bay hype has coming into any season. I'm just not going to buy into it. And friends of mine that I know that are big Tampa Bay Bucks fans, they say the same thing. And I even know some of them that want Jameis Winston gone already, just because of his inconsistencies.
Yeah, I have a guy that I'm friends with online, and he's a huge Tampa Bay fan. A couple years ago, he's like, Jameis Winston's the answer. Then we get Mike Evans, and it's every year I say, hey, just keep pounding. When's Tampa Bay going to turn it around? But to talk about the Saints game today, their running game pretty much got shut down. They got 2 touchdowns, but they only had about 100 yards. But Kamara only had 44 yards today.
Yeah, he got shut down today.
Oh well, maybe they got a blueprint for him now. I hope so.
I hope so too.
Yeah, and that's actually what we're about to get into next, Jaquan, is the road to the playoff segment here. So we'll jump on that, and then maybe we can, because I just saw the Patriots just were able to beat the damn Steelers, 27-24.
Somehow.
Holy shit!
So
yeah, they came up and
they got them. But well, I appreciate you calling,
Yep.
man. I hope you call next week. Maybe we'll be talking about another Panthers victory and how we've, maybe taken the lead in the NFC South.
hopefully.
Yeah.
All
I
right.
appreciate your phone call, buddy. See you next week.
Thank you.
Yep.
See you next week.
So like I said, that was Jaquan. Look, guys, the phone number's right there. You can see it. 704-665-0489 is the phone lines. You can call us. You can talk about anything you saw that we may have missed and not talked about it. It happens, trust me, because obviously we're not pros here. We've never played the game like D'Angelo Williams says, so we don't have an opinion that matters, apparently. But
You can just erase all of D'Angelo Williams' history from Carolina football.
God, what a tool that guy is. Anyway, I see some people dropping some more comments here. How do y'all think Worley and Bradbury compare to Gamble and Lucas? Do they have the potential? Ooh, man, that was some strong years. If Worley can stay consistent and continue to get better like he has the past couple of weeks and the flashes he showed last year and at times this season, like the last 2 weeks, as we said, I think Bradbury's going to be fine. He's got a learning curve this year because they moved to more man out of zone coverage. I think he'll be fine. He'll be solid. And I think they might be able to compare, but Gamble was a hell of a cornerback for a long time for Carolina, as well as Ken Lucas. Obviously, Lucas played a big part with the 4 interceptions in the playoff run in 2003. That's a strong comparison. I'd like to see another year of these two before I really make a strong judgment. But going off what we see right now, I think they have potential, especially with this. If the pass rush can stay there,
Yep.
I can't say consistency enough.
Yeah, consistency, and we still have 2 weeks left in the regular season. We see this over the next, those 2 games and some playoff games. You could talk about comparisons to some of the better defensive players we've had, but right now, if you look over the whole season, I would say no.
Look at Antonio Carrera. Look at the pressure Butler is getting minus sacks. Yeah, look, Butler. I think he's been underrated. He sniffed out a big screenplay that could have went for big yardage last week against the Vikings, and I think his play's been underrated as well. And not to mention, last year he had a few blocked field goal kicks, and I constantly see him breaking through those field goal lines every time. And Billy was like, sometimes we're like, oh, no, he didn't quite get there, but I think Butler's starting to come into his own, but his biggest thing has been staying on the field, not being injured. So that'll be something to watch. Our defense will improve even more when CJ and Shaq return. We'll see. I agree with the Shaq statement, and I think we'll be better on the run defensive side of things with CJ back in there. I think Peppers has really grasped onto this role right now, and it's helped our pass rush tremendously because he's in there with more. And I think Wes Horton. I think the rotation between him and Wes Horton right now is getting more pressure than it was with Charles Johnson. Charles Johnson's a solid base 4-3 defensive end that's going to be able to contain the run. He had some great years in his prime as a pass rusher, but I think those great pass rushing days are behind him.
Yeah.
I see you smiling because I know what you're thinking.
I mean,
but
you can't be Peppers is 37, and he's a freak.
Yeah.
So I agree with Shaq, but not Charles Johnson.
Yeah. Did anyone else almost have a heart attack in the fourth quarter? My boy Cody Wilson right there. Yeah, when CMC dove right over that daggone onside kick, I thought it was kind of odd. I like CMC's hands and everything, but I thought it was kind of weird putting a rookie in that situation. Maybe do you? I don't hate I don't think it was. I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but
we're in week 15.
Yeah,
we're past rookie stuff.
Yeah. Well,
and he's a running back.
That's still
he has great hands.
Yeah.
And that ball just
and I'm sitting here thinking about it. I don't know who else maybe Greg Olson, but other than that, I don't know who else you put there with great hands and the speed to catch the ball if it ends up traveling further or something. But I don't think he makes that mistake twice. I wouldn't count on that. But it was definitely
and it was a weird hop. I mean,
yeah.
I would much rather see him stand up and scoop it than try to jump on it because the ball is going to pop out if you don't have it exactly right. So yeah, I had a heart attack. Said, "Oh, here we go, Hail Mary time," and I was really worried at that point.
Yep. So right now, looking at the road to the playoffs here, We're going to take a look right now. You know, the Eagles were able to win today. Foles was able to pull that off. They're projected first seed. They've clinched a first-round bye. The Vikings are the projected 2 seed. Carolina right now at 10-4 is projected 5th. Rams, they would be playing the Rams at the 4th seed. And the Falcons are the projected 6th at 8-5, with the Seahawks getting absolutely clobbered. I mean, I blinked, and that lead went from 13-0 to 34-0, and it was glorious. I mean, I love seeing Seattle go down. I don't want to see them in the playoffs, and I don't think anybody ever wants to have to travel there, regardless of their injuries or whatnot. Saints 10-4. Go ahead.
That team, the past 2 weeks, they're gone mentally.
Yeah.
I think that team is done. I don't know if they win any more games the rest of the year. If Pete Carroll doesn't get the mentality different, you have, 2 players ejected last week. You had another player ejected this week for throwing a punch.
Discipline's not there.
So,
Players are frustrated, and it's clearly starting to show.
The injuries have killed them.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing is the play has just knocked them down from, the injuries, not being able to play their best game. It's starting to get frustrating, getting beat the way they have been.
And I think Russell Wilson lost his little lucky rabbit foot because
Yeah.
the plays that he was able to make in the past
dude, the
are
Houdini effect.
not happening anymore.
Yep. So, like I said, right now the Panthers are projected to play the Rams, the 4th, 5th seed there. The Falcons, the 6th seed, playing the Saints at the 3rd seed. The Patriots just clinched home field advantage in the AFC. The Steelers cannot get over the Patriots curve. Just can't get past Bill Belichick, it seems, and Tom Brady. And I think we talked about it before. I think that was the AFC Championship game right there. And I don't like to overlook the Jaguars right now either, because that defense is good, man, and it is legit enough. And if all it takes is a good game from Blake Bortles at the right time, and
If Blake Bortles wins the Super Bowl,
I ain't saying Super Bowl, I'm saying AFC.
Okay, AFC, but if he gets the AFC Championship and gets to, if Blake Bortles gets that far, I'll be really surprised.
I just couldn't pick them to go to Foxborough and win. That's my biggest thing there. So and look at that ugly AFC. You got the Bills, Titans, Jaguars, Chiefs right there. That is some ugly football
Oh yeah,
for
and
playoffs.
it's
AFC,
still
and it's still up for grabs. Yeah.
it's still up for grabs. I mean, they won't know until the last week of the season. A lot of them.
Yep. So, obviously, like we were talking with Jaquan, if Atlanta goes to New Orleans, beats New Orleans next week, Carolina beats Tampa Bay, Carolina will hold the top spot in NFC South going into Week 17 with a chance to clinch it and win the division if they can beat Atlanta, which is shaping up to be a huge game. Obviously, if Atlanta goes down there and loses to the Saints, that's also beneficial for Carolina, because if they're able to beat Tampa Bay and they still lose to the Falcons, that should still keep them in it, because they'll have 6 losses to our 5, depending on how everything else still shakes out. I mean, there's still several scenarios that could go on there. But right now, Carolina's in a great spot. They're starting to show the consistency we've been talking about that we wanted to see. Greg Olsen back, Christian McCaffrey doing his thing, Cam Newton, Ace Boogie, Baby Bubba is doing work right now. So good stuff. I'm going to look at y'all's comments one last time, see if there was anything else. Yep, y'all rolling in here. Cody Wilson, 42 linebacker. Never seen him in, but I like this style. That's Colin Jones. He's actually a cornerback, Cody. He's been on the team for a while now. He's normally a special teams type of guy, but he's been a backup cornerback and safety and sometimes nickel. Last year we saw him play a lot with injuries to the defense, and that's kind of why he was in there. He had struggled in the past. That's why I was worried about him going in today, but he played well. We talked about it. He stepped up.
He had an interception.
Yeah. Ricky Hertz, hey, am I too late? I mean, we're actually getting ready to get off the show, Ricky, but look, once this is posted, you can go back. We'll put it on YouTube. And again, look, y'all be sure to follow us right up here so you can get notified. If you click follow, it should give you an arrow drop-down box, and you can have it where it's put at the top of your list, and you can get notified whenever we go live or do anything. And then, of course, if you can't catch us here and you subscribe to us on YouTube, whenever we post all these videos and all our film analysis and stuff right there to YouTube, you'll get a notification of that. You hit that little bell symbol there to get notified. You'll get emails, notifications when we post videos there. And then, of course, follow us on Twitter. We just get up there. We drop a lot of our stats there. That's where I'm always constantly putting stats and figures and other little analysis stuff up there. I don't get on Facebook a whole lot, but to do our Facebook Live shows. So y'all do that, and I think that's pretty much going to wrap it up unless you had anything else you wanted to say. Or
Predicting next week.
Do you want to? No, we got to say that for the preview. We got to save them something. Look, y'all be sure to join us Wednesday night. About we go 8:00. We go live every Wednesday night. We do our weekly game preview, so y'all can join us up there. Y'all can drop y'all's predictions when we do that, and we get interactive there as well. We get guests on. Like last week, we had Josh Klein from the Riot Report. They're doing great stuff. We'll see who it is this week, and then Tuesday or Thursday this week, I'll be doing the film analysis, maybe with somebody else. I had Scott Leedy on last week, did a hell of a job. Might get him back on. We'll see how that goes. But big win today, 10-4. We control our fate. Let's go get another one in Tampa Bay next week. Keep pounding. We're going to get out of here.
Yeah, see you later.